Ever since I decided to turn my front lawn into an edible landscape, something bothered me. It was the grass. I managed to make several beds around the front portion to plant veggies and flowers, but the grass path around them slowly degenerated into a sorry carpet of messiness. While I have a high tolerance for a natural look, I felt that a bit of organized structure would help my front yard look more productive and be more practical. Design is all about form and function, and I knew just what I had to do. I decided to hop into my car and visit a funky local store in Baltimore. Baltimore has that weirdly charming vibe of a big town or small city. Right under the overpasses for the highway that permanently scar the city with 1960s futuristic dystopian urban planning lies a local treasure. Baltimore is where I went to school, and this city's chaotic beauty has a place in my heart. From the old mansions of a burgeoning port city to the boarded-up houses that served as home for many factory workers, Baltimore, Charm City, mesmerizes you. Hidden around failing warehouses now flourishing with new growth lies a quirky establishment, the Second Chance Store. This is a salvage yard with old furniture and reclaimed construction materials. Its name reflects the animas Baltimore has experienced since the turn of the millennium, going from forgotten and failed to hip and happening. Inside the old warehouses lies forgotten treasures, under layers of patina, dust, and memories. I can only wonder all the things these walls have witnessed. Stained glass from congregations long disbanded, banisters that long to be caressed by transient hands, mantles left in the cold, yearning for new fire. Each piece here silently lectures history. While this is a great place to pick up an accent piece for your home, I was looking for brick to lay a new garden path. I bought about 150 bricks for half the price of new ones. That is the beauty of reclaimed brick. They will generally cost you less than new ones, but I was actually more interested in the reclaimed brick because it looked old and worn. I did not want my garden path to look new and shiny. I wanted it to feel like it had always been there. It was always a part of the house, a path worn by those who had lived in this 100-year-old house in generations past. This was early spring, and the weather had been rather bipolar in the previous days. The sun had risen to a seasonal chill that quickly started to dissipate. As I lugged my cache of pavers into my yard, I could visualize in my mind the new path to replace the current grass. Inspired by gardens of the old world, like French potager or kitchen gardens, I picked up a shovel and fork and started to remove the grass, creating a shallow trench where to lay the brick. I felt that a narrow 3-brick wide path would be big enough to allow access to the planting beds while not hogging away all the space in the front yard. As I have mentioned previously, my front garden is the place in the property that receives the most sun, so it makes the most sense to grow veggies here. For that reason, I tried to cram as much production in this smaller area, leaving the shady backyard alone. This does have the benefit of concentrating my efforts into a smaller, more manageable area. If you have just moved into a home with a larger lot, or are thinking of starting a garden, I suggest that you pick a smaller, ideal spot and limit yourself to that in the beginning. After digging a rough, shallow trench about the depth of the brick, I started to smooth out the bottom, tamping the earth to create a more even surface. While you can use a special tool designed specifically for this, or even a machine that only tampons ground, I was improvising. To aid in creating a more stable surface to lay the brick on, I spread a layer of patio sand over the trench. I must say, I'm probably doing this wrong. At least when I watch how to lay a brick path on This Old House or some other televised program, it always seems to be a more difficult process than this. I'm sure they have solid reasons to recommend what they do, and I'm sure my path will not turn out perfect and level and 100% stable over time. I'm also sure weeds will colonize the cracks in between the bricks, but it doesn't bother me. Once I lay out all the brick, I noticed it looked too even, so I decided to break things up and mix the pattern randomly, adding some new brick here and there. Taking away the strict uniformity made the arrangement look less labored, more haphazard, more like it had gone through years of use and repair. When I was happy with the layout, I started to fill the holes with soil left over from all the digging. This would not be a high traffic path, so it didn't need to be super stable. I wanted it to give me access to my garden beds, maximizing my planting space while preventing the path from getting muddy and worn. Coming up in the next block, I'll show you what became of the brick path. Did I get more than I bargained for? Right after this commercial. Suburban Homestead videos have been produced because of the generous support of viewers like you through Patreon and through purchases of my art on Etsy. This week I'm featuring a DVD for a 35-minute stop-motion animation I made using handmade felt puppets. If you live in North America, you can purchase it for just $4.99 through my Etsy shop. Here is the trailer.
I'm worried. Our wheat is running out. There's no more rice, and our cash reserve is waning. Soon we might have nothing.
I have you, dear, and the farm too. Don't worry.
I don't know. It's just that sometimes I feel it would have been best to sell the farm, find work in the city, and move in there.
Listen, Amir. Remember how you promised this would be 50-50? Now you make me a beast of burden? Where is the donkey you promised?
Ezra, listen, look!
Baloney. All I see is my calloused hands from pulling this cart around up and down every single day, and we never get to sell anything.
Look, this is the perfect location, can't you see?
All I see is illusion.
Well, I see the future. Could you show me what seed you're using? Just for research.
They're heirloom wheat seeds.
But all the respectable agribusinessmen like you don't use these seeds anymore. But don't worry, I have here with me Seedomatic 3000 seeds. Ezra, do the demonstration.
The secret to Seedomatic 3000 is in its superior genetic material. Seedomatic brings out the best of species. So tell me what the plan is then.
This farm, everything will be ours.
Mr. Norrell, the field is full of tares.
We can't lose this harvest. We will be bankrupt.
Get him! He's lying!
Where's my puppets? Oh, I should have listened to Mom.
He's a phony! He's lying!
We will lose this harvest and probably the farm.
The next day, the sun decided to go into summer mode as temperatures reached the 80s in the middle of early spring. I was still getting used to these freak temperatures. I had a lot of cleanup to do as I had piled all unearthed grass into beds from all the digging. I had to separate the precious soil from the grass by banging and shaking the soil from the roots. Thankfully, it had not rained. That would have created pools of mud and pasty clay-encrusted sod, making the job of separating soil from root 10 times more difficult. This was a job of patience. You have to pace yourself. I was starting to regret the path I had taken. The old grass path was looking more and more appealing with each passing minute. But I must say, on further reflection, that they were very annoying to keep tidy. They needed constant mowing during the summer, and most of the time looked half decent at best, and horribly overgrown at worst. Grass also has a tendency to migrate into the garden beds, so I had to edge the beds every season. Shade from growing plants also tended to kill some of the grass, leaving bare spots here and there. So the brick was definitely an improvement. I decided to work more efficiently and got some simple garden tools to aid me. I must say that the invention of iron tools may have been one of the most important technological advances ever. The internet pales in comparison in scope. After all, if growing your food only using your hands takes you most of your time, social media would be the least of your worries. Never underestimate the power of a good shovel and fork. I heard that when the California gold rush happened, the people selling provisions, including tools, to the gold miners were the real ones making the money. After successfully separating all the soil from grass, I went about leveling it using a rake to form new garden beds. I have recently tried to disturb soil the least I can in my garden to foster healthy soil life, but in this case, digging was inevitable. You may be wondering, why did I have to have this brick path in the center of my small garden, why not just have a very large space to grow vegetables on without a path, much like the traditional veggie patch? The main reason why I opted to install a more permanent path to this area was for access and to prevent soil compaction by foot traffic. One thing I learned early on with intensive gardening is that you do not want to step on productive soil because it will compact the earth, leaving less vital airspace pockets that are important for water retention and soil fertility. By devoting space for permanent paths, you allocate a specific place for all the compaction to happen, while at the same time giving you access to the planted areas, leaving them fluffy and fertile. Having good soil structure is key to a productive garden. Covering the soil is another very important precept I do not get tired of repeating. I got some wood chips to use as mulch to cover the soil, protecting it from erosion. They would also give my garden a more finished look. Since I wanted to create not only a productive yard, but a beautiful garden, wood chips make things look far neater. Some of the soil I had left exposed was already showing signs of crusting over. Adding the wood chip mulch would remedy this. If you look at soil that is uncovered, you will find much less life in the first inches as you dig. Contrast that to mulched earth that teems with all kinds of life forms. I had previously sown some peas in the central bed, and they were putting out shoots. A reinforcement layer of mulch would ensure good growth by providing more constant moisture. This crop was going to be the first crop of my reconfigured front yard. I had to protect it against the groundhog, as it loves to snack on tender pea shoots. And while a groundhog had predicted 6 more weeks of winter, it had grossly miscalculated, as it felt like we were in the middle of summer, and I knew that the groundhog was liable to attack any time after waking from its slumber by rising temperatures. I got one of my trusty garden cages and installed them over the peas in the central bed. While I knew it would do its job properly, it didn't look right for the space, hogging too much area, looking cumbersome. So I decided to use one of my tower tutors in its place. This would protect the peas from the groundhog with its mesh bottom, as well as serve as support for the growing peas. I liked that. It worked perfectly for the space, highlighting and complementing the French potager theme. I was happy with the results. It looked elegant. Soon enough, the peas were shooting up, and in just a few weeks, they were flowering and setting fruit.
Ao som do mar, deitar eu vou, em berço esplêndido, poder eternamente, irei sonhar com margens passadas.
With green growth dressing up the bare bones of the garden, it looked more elegant, more finished, and deliberate. I was very happy with how the space was turning out. Slowly, I was building a special place to nourish the body and the soul.
Dorme com barulho desse, depois diz que dormiu bem. O rio já não é doce não, as águas amargas agora marianas são.